Hello, everybody. We're here with Chris Coyier talking about
folks.
some CSS trick stuff. Hey, man, thanks for popping in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. As always, I've done this before with you. I feel like this isn't our first rodeo at the podcast game.
I think so. Love having you on. So I wanted to just kind of catch up with you real quick and find out what the hell's going on with the Kickstarter and CodePen, and you're making all kinds of noise.
It was last week basically.
Yeah.
It was kind of a big week because I think it was Sunday night. I don't know. I had this idea to redesign CSS tricks through Kickstarter, so if nobody has any idea, that's what I did. I decided to go off on my own and work on projects and stuff and kind of leave the full-time job. And I'm like, I'm going to put a lot more time into CSS tricks, including redesign it. And I was like, but if I redesign it, why should I spend all that time working on the web and not record it? Because that's what I do. So I'm like, I'm going to do that, but just like for funsies, instead of just publish it for free on CSS Tricks, which I've done 120 videos or something for free on CSS Tricks, and they make no money, which is not a big deal. I like doing them anyway, and I'm going to continue doing those free videos even throughout this. I thought, well, maybe I'll just charge some small amount of, and then put them kind of behind a private access area or whatever, like a login area. And then what do? Do I just say, oh, all of a sudden those are available? I was like, there's something about like the spirit of Kickstarter and that like thank you nature of it. And I just thought it's such a kind of a platform that once in a while things, take off on or it does good. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I think it would be fun to use a third-party platform to kick it off. So I bought a camera body that could record video and a tripod, and I set it up on there and pointed it at myself and was like, blah, 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 blah. I want to do stuff, and I was sincere. I just explained what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I bought Final Cut Pro.
Oh boy.
$299 in the store. I was like, I'm in 1,000 deep on this. I had to buy this fancy camera because it's the video has to look fancy. It has to have a blurry background and stuff. Nobody's gonna contribute if there's not a blurry background.
You're not professional if you can't blur the background.
Spent like 3-4 days watching Final Cut Pro tutorial videos and stuff and learning how the timeline works and putting some graphics in there and stuff, because if to get accepted on Kickstarter you pretty much have to have a fancy video. And then I explained it and I put all this time and I had like a week's worth of work at least into the Kickstarter, and they're like, nah, sorry, denied.
So they denied you? What did
you? Totally. They're like, it's too much. It's more of a fund my life project than a specific creative project with a goal. And I was like, you're kind of right, but I'm going to convince you otherwise. And I'm like, no, it's not. Here's the goal. I'm going to redesign the site, and the reward is you get access to that. I feel like it's pretty cut and dry. Right. And I reworded some stuff. I didn't change any of the video, and I appealed to them. And then just randomly they're like, okay. Which is hard with them. They don't respond on Twitter. They have no customer support. There's no forums. There's no even email address. There's no way to talk to Kickstarter.
Really?
Yeah. So I feel like I just got a different reviewer or something, and they're like, okay, now you're in. Oh, wow. I'm like, publish. So that was like I don't know, not that long ago. Not this past Sunday, but the one before that, or whatever.
Right.
Not so long ago.
Okay.
And it took off. It made its goal. I put a kind of arbitrary goal of $3,500 on it, being like that's about 1 month of rent and expenses for me. So if I make that much, that'll be cool. I'm going to do it anyway. So, but I feel like that goal would be. So people are like, it's 1,000% funded. I'm like, yeah, it is, and that's so awesome.
Yeah. But
it's also like 1,000% of what? Like an arbitrary kind of.
Right.
So it's not like I needed this much dollars to make this thing done, and now it's just like an early, so buying your tickets to the show kind of thing, more like. And I'm friggin' ecstatic that it's done as well as it is. There's 6 more days to go, and it's like $54,000 or something. I'm like, whoa!
I'm looking at it right now. It's $56,000.
Oh man!
Yeah, 6 days left. You're gonna crack 60.
It might slow down, but I tend to think they jump up at the end too. So I'm like, and people are asking me like, now that you're Moneybags McGee or whatever, which relax, I left behind a job that made a lot more money than this does.
Yeah.
what are you going to do with all the money? And I'm like, you know what? It is going to change a little bit. I'm looking through Dribble today. Like, I want to hire you to design a little part of it, or I want to design you to, like,
That's awesome.
outsource some parts of this because I want to make it as big and as good as it can, and I need to be spending time doing what I do best. And I can design, but I feel like if I could outsource some bits and pieces of the design, which I can now afford to do because I'm going to do it. So I'm just going to take some of that extra, and funnel it back into the thing. That's the plan anyway. It's all
awesome.
kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get that you had this extensive plan of what you do with the money. So, I mean, I think what you're doing is excellent.
Thank you.
Cool. So, when are you going to get started rebuilding your site, or have you already started?
I kind of have started. I have some visual direction for it that I wanted to go, which is kind of where it started, but I want to hold off on that a minute. I'm going to use, I think you even responded to me on yesterday. I'm going to like hire, and I have a content strategist hooked up.
Right.
So before I get too far visually, I'm going to get them involved and see if they can find any weak points and then go through the goals. And so I've shot a couple videos already for this thing. One of them being like, let's take inventory of everything we got, so that we can that we're not just designing randomly. We can like just know exactly what it is we're designing for.
Yeah.
So I have like a content inventory, and then I'm going to do a one on the goals. So it's not just a redesign for the sake of the redesign. It's we're going to keep all these goals in mind. So those are like kind of the first 2 videos of the series. It's kind of under production already because it's funded. So
are you definitely going to work with a content strategist? Have you found somebody, or are you still kind of?
Kinda, it's based. It's not for sure yet, but Erin Kisane from the book. I met her while we were in Vancouver, BC, or something. Right. So it was just kind of good timing that I've, like the chances of her saying yes are higher right after you meet somebody in real life, So I'm gonna get all my thoughts together, send her my inventory, send her what I think, and just be like, hey, is there anything in your expert eye that I'm screwing up? I'm not sure I could afford to hire someone of her caliber for like a long-term gig or anything, but hopefully maybe she'll work on a micro level for me a little bit.
Well, awesome. We'll cut this piece out and you can just email that to her.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. We were watching that here and just we were beside ourselves too when we saw you get funded, and then it kept going. We were just like, man, it's like, yes, somebody pulled this off. Last time we saw something like this, it was Frank Chimero in his book.
And he's literally back on Kickstarter right now, if you didn't know that. He's doing a second one.
I didn't know that.
It's not yet funded, so you can get in on the helping Frank before he actually, I think it's like clips of his writing, which I'm excited about as well, because I love his writing on his blog. I think he's just going to turn some of it into short form, book format stuff.
Well, let's jump over a little bit to CodePen. I know you've been kind of working on that for a while, and you're still calling it beta?
Yeah, well, it was literally alpha before that day. That's why I was talking about that crazy week, because that next day, we're all like, hey, this is ready. Should we put it out there? I'm like, gonna be a pretty crazy week, but yeah, let's do it.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Well, what's your vision for that? I mean, why did you do that? I mean, I know you're a huge fan of JS Fiddle. That had to
exactly. Like I'm on Twitter all the time. Like, hey, somebody would ask me a question, and I would answer it with that, because it's for sure the best way to answer a coding question is with code, and not just a gist or not just a text file of code. The code that compiles, and you can look at it working. It's not just like, okay, now here's the code. Now go bring it over into your editor and see if it works. See if I made some typos or whatever. It's like, no, this is I don't know, JS Fiddle is amazing. I love JS Fiddle. And I wanted to make my JS Fiddle. So not that I have a problem with linking to them necessarily, but I want that to be mine forever. I don't want to risk third-party stuff for as big of a user as I am of it. And I was like, so I'm going to try to remake it, but I'm not just going to copy them. I'm going to make what I would make in JS Fiddle, because as a big user. And then as we're doing that kept getting more complicated, and I have a couple guys working on it for me, Tim Sabat and Alex Vasquez, very good JavaScript and server developers that complement my skills, which is nothing really. It's just kind of not nothing, but it's kind of like I'm like kind of a pretty decent front end like guy, but I'm like not super crazy strong with visual design, so I feel like I'm kind of limited, and I'm not super crazy strong with like application level JavaScript, and I'm definitely have no idea what's going on with servers and scaling and stuff. So Alex is amazing at large scale JavaScript,
Right.
and Tim's really good at server stuff. So it's like together we form this kind of good team for the thing. So it's kind of like JS Fiddle, and then it's kind of like Dribble as well. So I'm not afraid to make that comparison. The whole time I was making it, I was like, and I even like met with Dan because we were at a thing once, Dan Cedarholm of Simple Bits, and I was like, Dan, I'm gonna do this thing. It's gonna look a little bit like Dribble. But that's cool.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't invent hearting things. I'm like, yeah, but it's so awesome. When you're designing something like that, there's 10,000 little design choices you have to make. And like, oh, how did they handle this exactly? And like, man, you just look at Dribble and it's like, man, they just did it right every time.
Yeah.
So I had to eventually like DNS block myself from visiting Dribble for a while. It's like, no, I didn't do that, but.
You're just like,
yeah, it's JS Fiddle plus Dribble kind of switched together all the social layers, the hearting and following and commenting of stuff, but it's not screenshots, it's code.
Right. So what's your, I mean, clearly the plan is just to launch it and let it live, but I mean, what, are you planning to just basically use it as you answer people in general and just let the community have it? Do you have any more long-term?
Well, I mean, we have a roadmap of like features that obviously they come in. You know, like, oh, we need to fix these preprocessor language so we can safely run them, and we need more exploration. Like, you should be able to browse examples that are popular and that use CoffeeScript.
Right.
So that you, like, why can't you see all demos that are using CoffeeScript now? That would be useful. There's a lot of that type of thing. We put the Grinch That Stole Christmas style hearting into the app. So when you heart something, it just it's a little bit red, and then you heart it again, and it grows a little bit, and it's a little deeper red, and then the third size is like a big red heart. So that's kind of cool. It still only counts as one heart, but that's like what I was thinking of it as like a self-curation type of thing. So maybe I invent my own reasons for why I do that.
Right.
And so like, let's say 2 hearts means I want to remember this because it's something that I might use in my own app. 1 is just I kind of like that, and 3 is like I'm not going to use it in my own app, but I love this thing, you know, or whatever. And who knows what other people will invent. But well, right now you can't, like at this second that we're recording this, you can't even go into your own profile and view things that you've starred 2 hearts. Like that UI doesn't exist yet. So that's like the little stuff like that is part of the vision of just fixing bugs, making sure all that stuff is done.
Right.
I'm not sure what I'd rather like long-term big philosophical stuff evolves with how people end up using it.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, it's hard to believe it. It's hard to remember a time before Dribble, right? Because I know I spend a lot of time in there just looking at people's work, but it started off really bare bones, you know, and then it grew. I mean, you used to not even be able to see the dang thing unless you were a member, and then like 12 people were members, and you were like, let me in Dribble.
Yeah.
So it iterates.
Yeah, we decided not to go with that way, partially because I forgot about it, and and like it's just more complicated.
It's more crap to build.
Robust. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't care. I'm more about the free open web. We've had some interesting situations where people are a little weird about ownership of things. Like they'll find some code that somebody else did and they'll move it into CodePen so they can play with it because that's what CodePen is for.
Right.
And then somebody will be like, "Thanks for asking permission, dude." And I'm like, shoot, I forgot about that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting concept. I mean, I can't remember who I was talking with about that. It was at one of these conferences. The guy was talking about like what happens if you're working for a client and they're paying you, but in the process of working for the client, you invent like, I use the word invent loosely, but you create like some new way of doing something for a menu or something in CSS. Like who owns that? You know. I'm like,
yeah, good question. Well, if you work for an app, like if somebody works for you, pretty much you own it.
Yeah.
Actually, when I worked at SurveyMonkey, there was even like weird clauses in my contract because I do so much stuff at the side that they didn't have ownership over that stuff that I did there. Which who thinks of that? Jeez. Especially because like I don't care so much.
Yeah, and it's sort of anti what we do, you know.
But a client might, especially if you did something really smart and it took off, they'd be like, "Wait, we paid you while you were doing that."
I mean, if you work at Facebook, I'm sure they're like, "I own that shit."
Oh, they own this shit.
Like,
shit. At least you can say shit. That's cool. That's like 5 times.
Well, and then we say it a few more times. So before I let you go, how about the Shop Talk show? I mean, that's fairly new. You're on episode.
It's 23. We shot today.
Yeah, 23. So that's going pretty well for you.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to. I mean, well is hard to define in this case because well would mean that we had any kind of statistics that we could see.
Yeah.
And it's so hard with podcasts, dude.
Yeah.
No clue. If we threw it up on YouTube or something, we could measure views. We have some WordPress plugin that we use called PodPress, I think, that claims to have statistics, but I'm like, it's just like this flat. I'm like, maybe, but I feel like it's growing a little bit. And then there's one that's like crazy high, the Doug Niner episode, which I love, and I love Doug Niner, but I somewhat suspect that wasn't like a 2,000% jump in just that one episode. Something went weird there. And does Apple hit your server every single time for that file, or do they catch it? I don't know, but our statistics are way off, and I don't know. But is it going well in my mind?
In your mind.
I love it. It's so much fun. Just like it's fun hanging out with you.
In my mind, I'm awesome. No, I would say it's going very well. It's a good show. I like the live aspect of it. It adds something to it. How did you and Dave come together to do that?
I think he just asked me, and I've not so secretly wanted to do it for a long time. And I didn't like publish a blog post. I'm looking to do a podcast or anything, but I was always like, I always wanted to do it, and I can commit to the time, and I can commit to some planning, and I know how to use WordPress.
Right.
But what I can't do is like sound engineer it every time, and like learn all that stuff, and like tell everybody to get the right headphones and I just don't. I think me and Dave are equal partners in this thing, and he does a ton of work on that sound engineering side and all the fancy technology behind it, and I do a bunch of work in like getting the guests and planning the shows and publicizing it and whatever else I do. I mean, I don't know how many exact hours he puts in, but it's a 2-person job, I feel like. And I couldn't do it on my own, and so I was like, the next person that asked me to do a regular podcast where I get to be the guest every single weekend, I'm going to say yes, and thank God it was Dave Rupert.
Yeah, that's a good partner to be in crime with, man. He's brilliant.
Yeah, he's smart, funny dude.
Yeah, he's
like you.
Oh, no. Nice. Flattery will get you everywhere. Well, thanks, man. I just wanted to catch up with you on. I mean, you're doing a bunch of stuff here, and you're always doing stuff, but everybody wants to know what Chris is up to.
That's it, man. Those are the 3 pillars: Shop Talk, Code Pen, and CSS Tricks.
No other big secret. You're not going to work for Facebook, are you?
Oh, how would I? Absolutely not. I'm a fan. I like Facebook.
I do too. It seems like everybody's going to work there, though.
They really are. That or Twitter, man. Yeah, super groups.
Those are Twitter. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Gene. We'll talk to you soon.